Welcome to Double Dose of Raw Talk Podcast, your weekly dose of many discussions and opinions, a show where we get comfortable being uncomfortable. And remember, no topic is off limits. Now let's talk about it.
I was not a fan of Riverside in the beginning.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't got time for this shit. I was
Yeah.
like, hell no. Let me just stay with my Zoom. I
Yeah.
can't do this. It's
Yeah.
too fancy, right? And then one of my fellow like podcasters, someone that I took the course that I learned podcasting with and whatnot, he was like, shout out to Court. That's my boo. He's like, nah, D, you got to give it a second chance. And I was like, I don't really like to give anything a second chance. He's like, this
Girl,
is not the
same.
toxic man. Just do it. I was like,
Right.
okay, fine.
I love that. Yes. Some things in life you need to give a second chance, but not a toxic
Right.
man.
Right. And so I'm like, all right, here I go again, round
Hmm.
two. And ever since I did it, like it's so much easier.
Right.
Okay, so like this already started recording, so this is gonna be part of it. But here's the
Yes.
thing. Okay, as podcasters that we are, we produce our own shows, we record our own shows, we edit our own shows, we do all of that. Comfort is a thing, right?
Yep.
Like once you become used to something and you're
Mm,
comfortable, something is a thing. And I'm one that it's not that I get comfortable, is that I find comfort in things, right? And
absolutely.
so if this is what's working for me, like kind of like why fix something that's not broken
Hmm.
until there's something like new. And
Mm,
so new things kind of get a little scary. I don't knock things until I try it, but
yep.
to actually try it, I have to be open minded to it.
Mm,
And so this was one of those things where it was like, fuck, I gotta like learn something new, do it a little different. But guess what? And this is not an ad. They are not paying. This is not sponsored. But y'all, Riverside, like it has just make it a lot easier for me,
yeah.
for what fits to my schedule, my abilities, my capabilities. Um, all the things.
Yeah.
So, shout out to them on that. I heard that there's a lot of other great programs that I'm sure if I was to actually, dive into it, it would be my life even easier. Like the one you told me about, I definitely heard great things about it. So,
Yep. Yeah, that's the
let's
one that I
see. I
learned
don't know.
from. But, I just want to say, as you were talking, like something popped up in my head that being afraid of like change, it's so much more than just like starting a podcast. Like you can
Mm,
just apply it to every single aspect of your life, right? If you really want to level up, if you really want to do the scary shit, you have to put yourself out there and you have to do the uncomfortable things if you really do want to make it to that next level. Starting a fucking podcast,
yeah.
I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. Luckily, I learned from my sister who has an
Same.
amazing podcast, but to
She
do it
does.
yourself, it's like, oh God. And then the imposter syndrome comes up, and all this shit is like, if people are really even listening, all this craziness that comes in our heads. But if you really want to do the scary shit, you have to do the scary shit and get out of your own way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know what? I love that you just highlighted something. This is actually going to be episode 119. Okay. And I am, 120 is going to be a Solita episode. I'm actually choosing to reflect a little bit on that one because
Mm,
I have so many plans of what I tied into the whole podcasting space and my creative space that I've had to hold on to it a little bit longer before
hmm.
releasing certain things,
Yeah.
because of certain transitions and contrasts that I was going through. And I
Hmm.
feel like in order for me to really deliver, I have to be in the right headspace. I have to be
Yep.
in the right, energy, in the right aura, in the right moment. And not that it has to be perfect. No,
Right.
that's not what it is.
Hmm.
But I have to really feel that it's right. And so one of those things was how I started in the podcasting. It was like the question of how the fuck do I do this? Because I know
Hmm.
I want to do it. I've
Yeah.
been listening to them. I know there is something there for me to be able to share my stories and share microphones with others that have other stories that I could relate to.
Yeah.
Or I feel that maybe someone who is listening to a part of my story can relate more to their part of their story too, right? And I
Same,
was able
girl.
to discover, like, and I was able to discover, and again, not an ad space or anything, but always a gratitude idea to launch academy. Carla Wilmaris, my podcast coach, that was one of the things she said to why she created that. It was
Hmm.
because she started it off without having the resource of how to, and she
Hmm.
didn't want others to go through it. And so I'm talking about almost 3 years ago, right? Where For when the pricing was different, but
Yeah.
as Fat Joe said,
Right.
yesterday's price is not today's
It's
price. So
not
just saying,
today's
if y'all
price, honey.
okay, and so I just want to give her that respect. Don't be
Yeah.
acting or thinking like y'all gonna get what I did, but
Hmm.
I just want to say that this space has evolved so much, and
Yeah.
what is key to this is we may have learned how to start it, but then there's also the part, to your point, to not be scared of the changes or the evolution of it. There's
Yep.
so much to elevate in the space too. So it's definitely been a moment with this, and
Yeah.
and and with Riverside, but here we are today, and we're
Yeah.
ready to do this. And y'all already know, y'all be listening to the conversations here, and I just be forgetting my intro. So welcome back, guys, to another week and another episode on Double Dose of Raw Talk podcast. As always, I'm your host, Miss D, and today we are joined with a very powerful voice. Like, there was not going to be any other way I was going to do that intro, right?
Oh my
um
goodness.
no, it is honestly because I think out of 119 episodes, I've spoken a little bit here and there on certain things that I've experienced myself.
Hmm.
And there was one episode, and I believe it was episode, look at this, I believe it was episode 29, Fight or Flight, where
Mm.
I detailed a little bit more as to what my experience was. Now, let me be very transparent on something because, for one, this is trigger warning to anyone that may have experienced some form of any type of abuse in any form of relationship. And, this is not going to be one of those episodes where it's about sadness or anything. This is about just raw talk. This is
Yep.
what this platform is about. This is about being comfortable with uncomfortable conversations, and this is still uncomfortable conversation to many people, right? And there's different levels to it too.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because I don't want to shy away or invalidate anybody's experience of what it may have felt like for them or what it may have looked like for them, right? With my story, and something I've been transparent on too, it was with my child's father, my ex-husband, who I am very good friends with today. So let me just put that out there, right? My level of experience in the space of being in an abusive relationship did not have to be physical for it to be abusive.
Yep.
There's many different levels to this.
Yep.
I want to say very safely that I am one of the fortunate people who was able to grow from that and learn from that with the same person, and
Hmm.
understand that to what level of toxicity our relationship went, it went both ways.
Yeah.
And so I want to be transparent on that, because I think it's important to understand that what this looks like so many different things,
Hmm.
and we do need to be very open minded to what all of this could look like when it comes to living through, surviving and thriving from an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
want to make that very clear, because I think it's fair to say that, to be able to give everyone a chance to tell their story. Right.
Hmm.
So I have, like I said, a very powerful guest here today, and I've been doing the whole introductions, but I figure, especially when it's a podcaster, I'm going to let them thrive, and I'm going to let them do their intro
Yes.
too. So would my guest please introduce yourself to my listeners?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to have this conversation because literally everything that you just talked about is what I live and breathe with my own platform and my own podcast. So, hi to everyone who's meeting me for the first time. My name is Lianne. I am the creator and host of the Watch Us Thrive podcast, which is really the same exact thing that Daisy has going on over here, right? I like to talk about really uncomfortable, taboo topics with several different guests and solo episodes that I also have. I'm a domestic violence survivor and advocate. I started my podcast in it's actually going to be a year on January 1st. So yeah, it's my baby. It first started off with me sharing bits and pieces of my story and my life experiences, as well as sharing me going through and overcoming a physically and emotionally abusive relationship. And since then, it's just grown into something so fucking magical. I hope I can curse on here. Is that okay?
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm
Yes.
from Jersey, so I curse.
Hello. Hello.
But yeah, I just feature a plethora of guests to come on to share their own life experiences. The thing that I really want to focus on around my platform is being raw and real, like you,
Hmm.
vulnerable, just talking about the shit that we go through, that people like to keep quiet behind closed doors and don't want to bring up to the surface and are suffering in silence. I really want to be a voice for the voiceless and not just for survivors of domestic violence, even though that's like so near and dear to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime I meet a survivor sister or brother, I'm like, yo, like, I love you. I feel you. I understand you. But at the end of the day, I really just want to create a safe space for us to have these conversations so that we don't feel so alone with whatever shit that we've gone through, whatever trauma, whether it's bullying or, rape, incest, suicidal ideation, like a lot of heavy shit that people go through, but society has such this stigma around it, especially mental health in our communities of color.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Yeah.
just want to focus on bringing that shit up to the surface because there's so many people out there who are suffering in silence. And the way, in my opinion, that we can start to change the narrative is to talk about it. So that's a little bit about me.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I'm all for the talking points
Yes.
of it all. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason why, yeah, okay, because if you know double dose of raw talk, we're just gonna hit it like all the way raw, right? And that
Let's
sounds
go.
bad, but I'm just
Let's
gonna do
go.
it, right? So so true moment, because I'm gonna be transparent, I'm gonna keep it all the way raw here. I have told my story, like I said, about how it was so abusive towards me, right? My
Mm,
my ex-partner, and again, I two things could be the same, right? Yes,
right.
that was true over 13 years ago. Very toxic. We were very young. I'm going to be honest. It always looked to me like it was always done to me, or I was always spoken to in this way and whatnot. Fast forward to some years in a conversation, when trying to become amicable as co-parents, right? Because there was a point that I was just like, bro, sign your rights away
Yeah.
and like just like disappear, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was just like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's my kid. I'm gonna be involved. And we went through a whole roller coaster on that, right?
Yeah.
But I want to give credit where credit is due in having a conversation of where so much went wrong all around. It was a moment, and it was a raw moment for me to realize that certain actions that, yes, I did felt I did and I engaged in was in defense, right? To the other party, it was also equally toxic and abusive.
Mm,
And one of the things I learned in that moment was how easy it is for both parties to become
yep.
abusive to one another.
Yep.
And that was an aha moment to me. It
Mm-hmm.
really was. Fast forward even further, and now I could lay it out in last week's part one and part two episodes, 117 and 118. I didn't give the deets on this, but I actually ended up taking my son to Florida to surprise his dad for Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, he's not so well, so it was a very pure moment that was organized by me and my son's bonus mom.
Mm-hmm.
And we are very amicable today. But there was actually a comment made while we were there, and I hope if they're listening, they don't get upset, because I actually thought it was funny, so I feel comfortable sharing it here. Um, and then I thought it wasn't funny because I was like, damn, shit,
Right.
right? But I said something about grabbing a knife to like help. And a comment was, oh, yeah, girl, I know you like to grab knives.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
my son's father kind of looked at me like,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, yeah. And in the moment, it was a little bit of a giggle,
Right.
right? Because it's a joke. Um, kind of like laugh through my pain type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in another moment, it was kind of like I was a little embarrassed, right?
Yeah.
Because my son is now 15. It's a reality of what toxic relationships could look like, abusive relationships could look like, of what it looks like when you feel like you're constantly abused, even if it's emotionally, mentally, spiritually, even.
Yeah.
Something I've been able to identify even recently.
Yep.
And you feel like you have no other choice but to be on the defense, and you resort, as a female, for me at
Mm-hmm.
least, well, he might be able to take me down, or if I fight back, I'm not going to win here. So let me grab something.
Right.
And so, in one of those moments many years ago, my go to was a knife.
Mm,
And, it was just kind of like those moments that, okay, look at us. We're able to like speak on this today. And I
right.
know today I don't ever want to be in a situation like that again.
Mm-hmm.
It is a proud moment for me, and very, um, I want to say peaceful, to see that there is happiness on the other party's side, and that they've evolved and that they've changed and they've been able to carry out a very healthy relationship as well.
Yeah.
Because that's something that my son still steps into, right? That's also his family. And so I want to believe that my son is able to see that as well. But the truth is, that is not the case for everyone. The truth is, that is not as I want to say, for lack of better wording right now, as such a smooth transition
Yeah.
of growth for everyone. Because for some people, it's not just spiritual, mental, and emotional. There is actual physical involved. And this is something that I'm no stranger to because I've seen it. I've seen it in others. I've seen it growing up, and when you grow up in certain neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
You see certain things happening. You're exposed to them, and the truth is, we still stay quiet a lot about these things for a very long time.
Yeah.
I felt like I had to stay quiet for what my experience was, and I felt like I couldn't say anything. I
Can I
most
ask
recently
you
got
why did you think that?
because I felt that for some people, again, for lack of knowledge, it was
Hmm.
kind of like, girl, that's not abuse or that's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't go through nothing. And when you're in that moment, you are going through something. For me, it was a dual experience. I
Hmm.
actually got very sick. I was very, very sick, and I believe I shared this on this platform, but if I didn't, here we go. I got sick where I needed emergency surgery, but the surgery could not happen quickly because I was sick.
Hmm.
Like, literally, the insides of my body, there was like acid killing me.
Oh my
And I was
gosh.
hospitalized, and I had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks to
Wow.
see if the swelling could be down, the treatment would work, and then there could be some form of surgery to be done. Mind you, a routine surgery for most, but for me, because I was so focused on everything else that was happening, I wasn't taking care of myself physically.
Yeah.
And girl, let me tell you, it was like one of my thinnest moments too, but I looked sick.
Right.
Despite one of my slimmest, thinnest moments, I looked sick,
Right.
right? And it was that level of stress that affected me towards my health, plus everything else. Just because I was sick or I wasn't feeling well didn't mean the abuse didn't stop.
Right.
I remember one time I had an episode. Ooh, I'm gonna get raw. I remember one time I had an episode and I ended up on the floor. I was in so much pain. I ended up like literally like on the floor, and I swear to you today now, I passed out. Do you think that person came to check on me? No, that person didn't. And that's also part of the abuse. It's the lack of care too.
Yep.
It's the fact that they don't in that moment don't care about you. You are
Nope.
not their first priority. And so I want to feel comfortable enough to share that because, like I said, I'm one of those rare stories. I'm one of those rare examples where we can actually talk about it together. We
Hmm.
can see where it all went wrong, where we lived through a very toxic, abusive relationship, and
Mm.
where we both know we never want to be in that space again because we do both share a son that we don't ever want to expose him to that.
Can I
Because,
just say, like, that is so fucking powerful to have, like, not only the accountability on your part,
hmm
but on his as well. And for you guys to have gone through some shit, some real heavy
yeah,
shit, and be
hmm
able to come onto the other side of growth and healing, and to be able to co-parent well, and to have like this connection and this relationship for your entire family. Like, before we even continue, I just want to give kudos to the both of you
thank
because,
you.
like you said, that shit is unheard of. My
Yeah,
story's completely fucking different. Like, my ex is in jail for what he did to me. You know what I mean?
and
And I never got
yeah.
that apology or that I'm sorry. Like,
Mm,
none of that shit happened. I had to find that within me, and that I'm still going through. You know what I mean? So I
mm,
just wanted to stop the conversation and just be like, yo, I'm giving you your flowers because that shit is hard. That's not
yeah.
easy, you know?
And
But
thank you for that. Thank
yeah,
you. And this
absolutely.
is this is why I speak so freely on this because I think it is important to give that recognition where the
Mhm.
recognition is due because it is so
Absolutely.
unheard of.
Absolutely.
A lot of people just would like to move past things and move on and don't even give if you don't at least apologize for it, at least acknowledge it and
Mm.
take the accountability. And a lot of people don't do that in
Yep.
whatever the situation may be. And so I like to give that recognition to my son's father because there was also apologies there from both of us. There
Yeah.
was and listen, the co-parenting goes up and down. There's so
Of
much we're
course.
still learning
Of
through this
course.
as he gets older. There's so many new things, but I still like to give the recognition that through all the hurdles and all the things that we still go through, like that part of it, I'm finally
Mhm.
really in a space where I'm coming to terms with that. That yeah,
Right.
that's part of our story,
Right.
but we've been able to get past that and evolve and grow as co-parents
Mm.
and what do you call it? What's the type of family? Oh my God, it's at the tip
A
of my
blended
tongue.
family?
Blended family. There you
Yeah.
go. A blended family. So thank you for that. And I want to dive right in. Usually we open up with as raw as it gets. And that's usually something that happens in the news or something like that. That could be a little messy. Not as raw as it gets, sorry, raw mess of the week. And the raw mess of the week, I do want to highlight it because you just did something very important for me. And being that my experience is what it is. I want to highlight this. I think it's appropriate to what the conversation is. That's usually what we do in during the raw mess of the week. And I want to highlight this whole rumor situation with why Chris Brown was not allowed to perform
Mm.
in a recent yes, I know. I want to
Yeah.
be able to highlight that. Okay. I want to for a second take away the whole concept of, oh, it's been that many years and all that
Right.
stuff. I want to be able to highlight the fact that both parties that were involved in this situation have already given knowledge in recent years to what
Mhm.
happened back then, both.
Yep.
I am a true diehard Rihanna fan. Okay. And so for me, what happened back then was extremely hurtful. It was
Absolutely.
extremely, extremely hurtful. I believe it was what, 13 years ago. So it was
Yeah,
around the time that
2009.
I was kind of like going through
Mhm.
the same shit.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Around the same time, right? And it was hurtful. It was so hurtful to see her go through this. In that moment back then, it was definitely like, oh my God, how can he do this to her? What the fuck? Like this, that, and the third, right?
Yep.
I would love to say I was one of those people that said I saw this coming. I didn't because I was equally a Chris Brown friend. To be honest, I was a fan of his.
Yeah.
So I would love to say that I saw it coming. I didn't. Here we are today, right? A couple of years ago, I don't want to pinpoint exactly what social media page I saw it, but I believe there was a posting about her and he congratulated her onto there. And she also had made some form of commentary surrounding the fact like there was already forgiveness. And she has gone through all her feels. She has spoken in interviews. He has been removed from several outlets, okay? Several platforms, several outlets as a result of this, right? But I want to highlight, take away the fame, take away their public figure status,
Mhm.
their millionaire billionaire status, all the industries that they fulfill, them just being two human beings. What is our feelings and how do we feel about when people do come to terms with what their story is? They face it, they hold each other accountable, they've said their apologies. Do we still hold that person in contempt?
Mm.
Do we still hold that
Mm.
person? And by we, I mean, hey,
Yep.
the court of public opinion. Do we still hold that person? And I say that person because it could be either party. To your point, you have
Absolutely.
brothers who are domestic violence survivors too, right?
Mhm.
We've got documentaries on bodybuilders, and I don't know if you saw that one on Netflix. Sally, the one who killed her husband, because she was a battered woman, and
Mhm.
some people say, nah, she set him up, and there was interviews saying she set him up,
Yeah.
but that doesn't take away the fact that she was a battered woman. So
Right.
whatever her defense was in that moment, I'm not excusing the death or the murder. I'm just saying, let's put the facts out there. She was a battered woman. The
Right.
facts out there are that Rihanna was hurt, right? But to what extent and for how long does the court of public opinion have the ability to hold someone in contempt? What are your feelings on that,
Mm.
Leanne?
Oh, that's so good. It's I'm gonna be so honest, like, I am
Hmm.
a Chris Brown fan
Okay.
before and after the whole situation. And
Mm,
for me personally, it just depends on what has happened afterwards. You know what I
mm-hmm,
mean? Has he continued to repeat the same toxic patterns over and over? Has he sat down and taken accountability? Has he shown that he has grown from that situation? You know what I mean? Like,
mm,
for me, there's gonna be a lot of people out there that, like, they're just gonna assume you're an abuser, you're a piece of shit, I fucking
mm,
hate you, I'm not gonna support you.
right.
Cool, that's your opinion, that's you. For me, because from what we have been able to see from social media and from media outlets and all those things, he's been, like, super fucking quiet and, like,
Mm-hmm.
out of the way. Like, the whole shit with Carucci when they were breaking up, that was a fucking mess. He was still in his toxic era. We all had our toxic era, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, we've all been that crazy person, chasing after your ex because they're over it, but you're not, like, we're
Mm-hmm.
all human, right? But for me, like, he has just been so out of the way and just
Mm-hmm.
focusing on creating his art and his music and sharing his truth and, all of these things that it's just like, yo, I see the growth.
Mm.
And, you need to allow people, well, let me rephrase that. You don't need to allow people a second chance, but for me, I have grown so much in my own healing journey that it would be hypocritical of me to not allow someone else the same chance. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So for
Yeah.
me, I'm a Chris Brown fan. I love his fucking music. I see the growth. So yeah, it's fucked up. It's not taking away what he did. What he
Right.
did at that time is wrong. It and she did not deserve that. But at the end of the day, the only two people who really know the full truth is Rihanna and Chris Brown, you know? And the
Yes.
social media and the media, they like to paint this picture and we only know from what they are showing us, but we don't know the full
Mm-hmm.
truth except those two people. But for me, like, I think it's been long enough and he's shown the changes that I'm like, okay, people can change, but it's really up
Right.
to that person. You can't make someone change if they're not ready to. So that's my 2 cents about it. It's probably not a
I love
popular
it.
opinion for a lot of people, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. I love that you said that. I want to be fair on this too.
Mhm.
Because again, there's a reason and an intentional reason why I feel so comfortable in sharing my truth, right?
Mhm.
And the evolution of my truth. There
Yeah.
was once upon a time, I used to look at it very one-sided.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And
Me too,
growing
girl.
up, yeah, and growing up, the majority of the time you saw domestic violence was totally tied up with the woman being abused.
Right.
And it wasn't that there was not men who were going through that. It was just men did not feel comfortable, nor did they have the space to be able to speak on it.
Yep.
Right. And we have to be able to change that. I'm going to tell you why. I have a son. I have a son
Mhm.
that I realize is a very emotional Pisces gentleman. Okay, young
Mhm.
gentleman. He
Yep.
is very loving. He is full of love. He loves and he loves. My son does. And I always say, Lord, help me be very respectful to any man I date. Help me never again fall into that toxicity because I would hate for my son to be ever in a
Yeah.
situation because he loves so hard and so genuine
Yeah.
because he's just one of those young men that a female that he may one day fall in love with thinks that she can do things to him that would be
Mhm.
equally wrong if it
Right.
was the other way around,
Right.
and God forbid it was to ever lead into any form of abuse, right? And so that is definitely one of the things that has helped me see how easy it is that the same way it happens to women, it does happen to men. We
Yep.
just don't hear about it. It all ties into the mental health piece of it all, right? Men do not feel comfortable speaking on it.
Mm.
Men do not feel comfortable coming to the platform to say, how embarrassing is that, right? And that's something I've heard from men. How embarrassing is that? I'm going to come out and say, oh, she slapped me.
Yep.
Oh, she did this to me or she did that. I mean, there's just so much that happens, and we've seen it, right, on social media from,
Mhm.
regular, degular, smuggler people, but then also public figures,
Yep.
So, there's a lot to elaborate on that piece, but I wanted to shine light on it because there was just so much controversy on it. There were so many people who are like, yes, he doesn't need to be on the stage, like, honoring no one. He's still, responsible and this and other.
Right.
Cool. I get it. If you feel so strongly about that, I get it. I hope that anybody that does can really stand 10 toes on, and with their feet really grounded on the floor
Right.
and be able to feel that way and have that equal energy to every single moral aspect of this world.
Yep.
Because I find it that a lot of us who are very one-sided with certain things are very lenient to others. And by when I say we, I don't mean me and Lianne at this moment. I mean others. But yeah,
Right. Right.
that's my raw mess of the week.
Yes.
And we're gonna dive right into the as raw as it gets. And I want to be able to highlight in this segment, watch us thrive. Okay. I want to
My
know.
baby.
You love it, right? Yeah, this is watch
It
us
just sounds so
thrive. It's like,
good.
oh, it sounds really good. I
Girl,
love it.
you don't know how long it took me to figure out that fucking name. I was so stressed.
Really?
You don't know how many times I was texting my
Why?
sister, like, yo, does this sound good? Does this sound? She's like, no, try this, try this. And then lo and behold, I came across Watch Us Thrive and I was like, that's it. Nobody got it.
That's
I
the one.
Googled, I did my research. Nobody had it. I was like,
Yeah.
that's it. Mm,
Yeah, and you felt it,
I
right?
felt
You
it.
you felt it.
Yep.
It's so funny. I've gotten the question of, the why the double dose of raw talk. Well, double dose came from the double D because of my
Yeah.
breasts, but also it's my
I
first name and
love
my
it.
middle name initials. So I
Yes.
had this friend. Shout out to him if he ever listens. Shout out to him, Joel. He's one of my compadres, but also a very good friend. And he used to always call me double D, double D, double D, double D. But it was because I was
Yeah.
very aggressive, and it just aligned with my initials. But I always used to like once people started hearing that, there was kind of like this concept of me like Daisy always she just comes with it, like Daisy just always says it like it is. and
Yes.
and 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 it was just always like with that double D, and I
Hmm.
was just like, no, when I was thinking about this show, and the name that I wanted, right, um I said it has to have something double. It's not just simple with me. There's
Right.
always an added to it, an amplified voice. And I don't know how it evolved into the dose, but it just kind of like when I sat here and talked about it, and I remember I was talking about it with one of my friends, and I remember I went like this. I said, it's kind of like, when you're, and I
Right.
went like,
I love that. Yes. Un chin, un chin.
un, yeah, un poquito más. And I was like, it's like a dose. Like, and she was like,
Yeah.
yes. And she was like, yes, bitch, that's the one. And I always knew I didn't want the whole real talk. I feel like with the real talk, a lot of people know how to be real, right? About who they are and whatnot. I
Right.
just don't know if people always feel comfortable enough to keep it raw.
Mm.
And it's real easy to keep it real, right?
There's
You
a
could
whole
say what's on the
difference.
surface, but it's a
Hmm.
whole other difference to be all the way raw about shit. And a lot of the rawness comes from you, right? It comes
Yeah.
from it's easy to keep it real about other people and things in life,
Hmm.
but the rawness comes from you. So what's that rawness look like? And I'm taking this moment to do this because Lianne just makes me feel so comfortable in doing this. The rawness comes in the moment where I'm able to sit here and hold myself accountable to shit,
Mm.
and hold myself responsible to shit, and be
Yes.
able to shine my own light on me for my downfalls and my pitfalls and all that other nonsense, right?
Mm. Yes.
Let me do it for me before anybody feels like they have to do it for me. Because one thing's for sure, two things for certain. If there's one thing I've always made sure I never encounter, and I have, is for anybody to feel that they could defame my name or my character or my brand on any type of situation. So I'm gonna always speak my truth. You can speak your shit however which way you want to, in any narrative you want, and that's fine. I'm never gonna waste my energy in debunking that. I'm just
Mm.
gonna speak my truth.
Mm. Come
That's it.
on. She's
That's
preaching,
all it
y'all.
is.
She is
I mean,
preaching.
and I say that in so
Yeah.
many levels. I say it in so many levels, whether it is your relationships or any type of situation. I really mean that. Speak your truth. Put your energy in what your truth is, and not in debunking what anybody else has to say about you, because no
Yes.
one can take your truth away from you.
Mm.
And
Come
on
on.
that note, I want to dive into Watch Us Thrive and your truth
Yes.
and your why.
Mm.
How did we get there? I know there's so much
Yeah.
behind this,
Yeah.
but it's that amplified it wasn't watch me thrive. It's
Mm.
watch
Mm.
us thrive.
Yes.
So shine a little light on me on that. Share with me, share with my listeners. How did we get there?
Yes. So, like I said, it's going to be a year, January 1st of 2023, since I started this podcast. And originally, my why was because I just came out of an abusive relationship. I literally escaped, came
Mm,
back home, lost my job, had no money, didn't know what the fuck I was going to do with my life. and I needed an outlet. I needed some way to get these feelings out of inside of me because
Mm.
for the past, I'm 34 now, but for the past 33 years of my life, that was my coping mechanism. Shoving shit down, sweeping it under the rug,
Mm.
not acknowledging it, pretending like everything's okay. But when I'm by myself in my room in the dark corner, I'm fucking depressed, crying, miserable, hating life, right?
Mm.
So I, after, I left that relationship and I started my personal healing journey. I worked with a couple of life coaches and a psychologist, and I started to
Beautiful.
share my story with them, with these people that I trusted. And as I went through that process, I was like, I need to share this with people. I
Mm.
cannot keep this shit to myself because I know I'm not the only one. And when I started, it was just me sharing my life experiences, my stories of other relationships that I was in, just me being a regular, degular, schmegular girl in Jersey,
Mhm.
sharing my truth of overcoming toxic relationships. And the minute that I started sharing my story and creating my Instagram and posting all the time, little by little, people that I knew in my real life were reaching out to me, be like, oh my God, I went through that too. And, they
Mm.
were sending me pictures of their own bruises and just saying, like, yo, I was in a toxic relationship too. You're so brave. You're so brave. Then it started expanding to like globally, like people from United Kingdom, from fucking like
Mm.
all these people just started reaching out to me and saying, I'm a survivor too. Like I went through that too. And I was like, holy shit, I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
And that's the thing with toxic relationships, domestic violence relationships. When you're in it, you feel like you're the only person. And for me, I didn't tell anybody until the night my life was almost taken away from me
Mm.
that that was what I was going through. And when I started my podcast, I was like, yo, I can't be the only person. I can't be the only one. And since then, it has grown into something so magical. I've brought people on to share their own stories of what they've gone through, what traumas they've gone through. I've had people talk about, attempted suicide. I've had people talk about being sexually abused as a child. I've had people talk
Mhm.
about just so many things and life experiences that they've gone through, and they're happy and proud to talk about it because they have grown so much from it, and because they want to help people who are afraid to speak up, who may have gone through similar situations but are ashamed and scared and afraid to talk about it. And being able to hear other people share their own stories is so fucking empowering for me, and that is the mission behind it. Like I joke
Mhm.
around and I say it all the time, like I want to be the Latina Dr. Phil. Like that is the big picture goal. I want to
I
have my
love it.
own motherfucking show, have people
Yes.
come on and talk about their shit and help them through it. But my why at the end of the day is to create this place for people to talk about the shit that they don't want to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. Like that's my slogan,
Mm.
that's my tagline. So, yeah, it's
Don't
basically
don't
the
nobody don't nobody steal that though, because
no,
I'm gonna come
okay?
after you. All right,
Yes.
I'm just saying.
I'm gonna get a
Okay,
trademark, okay?
that's right. That's right.
But yeah, like exactly what you're doing. Like we need to have more of these platforms, especially, and I want to drive this home, in communities of color, Black,
Mhm.
Latino, Asian, whatever. Like there's such a stigma
Mm.
around mental health, around trauma, around going through shit, and we're so conditioned to what happens in this house stays in this house, and you don't speak
Mm.
about what you've gone through to other people. No, that's how we continue the toxic cycle of bullshit. Somebody needs to be the generational trauma cycle breaker, and I'll be happy to fucking be that person. And we need
Mhm.
more spaces like that for people to feel safe to talk about what they've gone through, because we all have a story.
Absolutely. I want to share something because this was okay. So this was part of the reason why I did things the way that I did.
Hmm.
I am someone as a woman who has taken a whole journey, right,
Hmm.
into feeling confident in her own skin and growing from, what that experience was for her then, what her lowest point was.
Hmm.
I share it on my ebook. There's a little ebook just where I wanted to share a little bit of what my journey to self-love looked like, right? And it started from the divorce and the breakup and leaving and all that other
Yeah.
good stuff, right? um But where I am today, one of the things and one of the purposes to this show, and I kind of did it with the Raw Talk too, was because a lot of people who saw that piece, they thought it was a completely driven sexual podcast. And so here's the thing: as a human being, comfortable in my skin, I could bring all the energy and all the rawness here to talk about all things sex. But the thing is that society and us, the people, need to have that much energy the way we do to talk about shit like sex and
Mm,
all the rawness surrounding it,
yep,
to talk about other shit too, like the mental health and the abuse and the childhood traumas and the
yep,
stigmas
yep,
and all that shit. So when you could create spaces, talk all things sex, talk all things great and fun and music and all that stuff, I'm all for it, right?
yep.
But let's also talk about all these other things, that the
Mhm.
more we talk about it, the more we take away the stigma. Because guess what? There's even so much stigma on sexual liberation, right? But
Come
because we
on.
put so much on the fun of it, we
Mhm.
are still allowing certain people to shame many of us who feel comfortable in our own skin to speak on that. And
Yep,
that's where the shame ties into the comfortability in speaking on mental health, childhood traumas, abuse, growing up in spaces and environments and with family members or friends who were abusing children.
yep.
We need to be able to hold spaces for people that can come to have that discussion too. Because guess what? As the people, just because you see someone at 36, 37, or 38 living a far more peaceful and fulfilled life with a partner and children or what have you, doesn't take away whatever traumas they may have experienced when they were
Mhm.
younger or
Yep,
years ago.
yep.
A lot of people say, oh, well, you don't look depressed or you
Mm,
don't look like any type of abuse happened to you. You don't know what that looks like.
girl.
One of the things that used to stand out to me a lot was when people would see a female, a woman, very comfortable in her own skin, showing her body, whatever. And God forbid that woman had a story to tell if she was ever raped. Real
Mm,
quick, it would be like, well, what were you wearing? Or how were you, or that one thing has nothing to do with the other,
yep.
you know. That person, that celebrity, or whoever that person may be, going on movies wearing certain things, does not give the rite of passage for anybody to have ever raped her or touched her in violation of her rights.
Mm.
Okay.
That brings up a point, like a question that a lot of domestic violence survivors get is like, why did you stay?
Mm,
And even my own mother asked me that question. And I really like it triggered something in me to like not disrespect her and be like, why the fuck are you
mm-hmm.
asking me that? But like to educate people who ask that question, that's not the question to ask. That
Right.
is victim blaming and victim shaming. The question that needs to be asked is, why does this person think it's okay to put hands on somebody? Why does this
Mm-hmm.
person think it's okay to abuse somebody? Don't put it on the victim, put it on the perpetrator who is committing the crime. You know what I mean? Like that's how you start to shift the narrative in taking it away from the person who's having the abuse done to them and putting it on on the person who is doing the abuse.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
furthermore, to add to that, that's how you put the responsibility and the accountability on the perpetrator.
Yep.
And I can only hope that when we do that, maybe that perpetrator 10 years from now can also have a regular life and has changed and
Yep.
isn't continuing that type of behavior and is able
Exactly.
to build a family with whoever the hell it is that they want to, and is not falling short once again to
Yep.
what the expectations are of being a loving partner. Because let's not even go to the definition of love,
Mm,
y'all. Let's
girl.
not, because that definition looks like so many things. And let me say this: we're talking about lovers here. There is abuse in friendships too. There
Come
is
on.
abuse, like we said, in family members too.
At
All sorts of
work.
different times at work, right? There's so much of that.
Yeah.
Y'all, I love, I'm not going to say I love that you used it. I love that you're so honest and so truthful in your story. Lianne says she escaped. And I want to say this because you just said work. I feel like I escaped from my last job
Yep.
into a far more better workplace environment and relationship today. I felt like I escaped because it was so abusive. There was such a narcissistic leader there that was really abusive to everyone. It
Mhm.
didn't matter who you were.
Yeah.
He was just like that. But I want to bring it back to the escape part. Um, it 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 got to the point where it was either your life.
My
on
life.
the lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got to that point.
Yeah.
Um, I want to shine light a little bit. What does this look like in now you are a mom, and how does that look like in continuing your journey as a mom, right?
Mm,
Because you were able to escape, so you're able to continue
yeah.
all sorts of journeys here, but also as a mother.
Yeah.
How does it look like the parenting and the motherhood for you as a domestic violence survivor?
I'm
Um,
so
I
glad
know.
you brought this up. And this is, I want to give a little context before I get into that part.
Mhm.
So, I was living in Florida when I met my abusive ex, and it didn't start off that way. Of course, like every relationship in the beginning, it's like rainbows and butterflies, and oh, my soulmate, I love
Mhm.
you so much, whatever. So, my daughter was not living with me. She was back here in Jersey with
Mhm.
my parents. Yeah, I went out there to like try and establish myself, get shit together, and then I was gonna send for
Mhm.
her. August of 2020, my dad breaks his leg. That was the start
Wow.
of, yeah, it was insane. He was on the roof of the garage. 60 something year old man had no business being up there. He fell down, broke his leg. So, long story short, my parents sent my daughter down to Florida with me while they were dealing with that situation.
Oh
And
my
at that
god.
same time, I was living with my boyfriend. I met him the end of April 2020, and my daughter came in September 2020. So we were together for about 5 months. That was before any of the abuse happened. My daughter was with
Mhm.
me from September until the end of December 2020. Then she went back. And while she was staying with me, she did witness no physical abuse, but she did
Mm.
hear the arguments. We would argue so much, yelling and screaming at each other behind closed doors, but it's a one bedroom apartment, like 800 square feet. She's staying in the living room, like you can literally hear everything. It was very
Mhm.
fucking toxic. So she was exposed to some of it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So now I want to get back to how the parenting was. When I came it was the end of, no, it was the middle of March 2021 when I escaped that relationship and I came back home. Me and my daughter, maybe a couple weeks later, I was sitting in her room, we were having a conversation, and she was so raw and honest with me, and she told me like,
Mm.
yo, seeing and hearing that really fucked me up. Like it
Mm.
really, I thought I was going to lose my mom. Like I thought when everything happened, she was so fucking scared that she was going to lose me. And I had to I told her everything. Like I literally told her every single thing that I went through from the beginning of that relationship to the night that I escaped. I didn't hold back one detail. She was 12 at the time. She's 13 this
Mm.
year. Yeah. So yeah, very
Yes.
vulnerable age, very,
Yes.
you know, it was just I me growing up, I didn't have that relationship with my mom to feel safe to come to her to talk about whatever shit that I gone through. For
Mhm.
me, as I am a parent and I am a single mom, her father has not been in her life since she was 2.
Mhm.
I wanted to have the complete opposite relationship that me and my mom had growing up. This is not to
Mm.
take away from my mom. I love her. She is
No.
an amazing woman.
Mhm.
She has her own shit that she deals with,
Mhm.
but for me, I want to have this type of relationship that my daughter feels safe to come to me to tell me anything that she's going
Mm.
through, whether
It's
it's
beautiful.
at school, a relationship, she's failing a test, she
Right.
feels like shit about how she looks in the mirror, like whatever it is, me and her, I want her to have that safety and that trust that I didn't have growing up. So for me, what that looks like is having those uncomfortable conversations, is
Mhm.
telling her about the shit that I've gone through, and showing her this is the shit that happened to me, and I don't want you to repeat the cycle. I don't want you to not love yourself to the point that you feel like you need to find validation in these toxic ass men who only give a fuck about one thing, and we know what that one thing is, and for you to get to the point that I was. I
Mhm.
never want my daughter to experience anything that I've gone through because it has taken me so long to get to the point that I have quote unquote healed from it. Even though the healing journey is never ending, There's always
Mm.
new levels that I'm gonna have to reach. But for me, I've gotten to the point that I'm comfortable enough to talk about it with her. And I want her to continue that cycle when if and when she decides to have children down the line. Like, this is how me and my mom were growing up. This is how it's gonna be for me and you growing up and generations to come after that. So to answer your question, I hope I did, but it's
You
just having
did.
an honest and raw and open, real conversations about everything, nothing being hidden behind closed doors. Like, we talk about everything, every fucking thing. And I think that's so
Mm.
important.
I love that you answered that and focusing on what your purpose is with your parenting and your
Yeah,
motherhood.
yeah,
Because to be quite honest, and again, I'm popular opinion to most, and probably some shame me. I do the same with my kid. There's nothing my kid doesn't know, and my
nope,
kid knows the story with his father.
yep,
And you know what's one of the things I take pride into? My kid says, "You both changed.
mm,
You both are so different.
mm-hmm,
I see how dad is with he calls her mom, his stepmom, he calls her mom, he calls me mama, he calls her mom, because I see how
mm-hmm,
my dad is with my mom. Like, he's not like that, mom, and I'm happy he changed. And you know
yeah,
what, yes, you should be happy and you should be proud that
yeah,
you're able to witness that, and you're able to see that your mom is here, and you're able to see how your mom has ensured to never bring a space like that or an environment like that or a relationship like that into this home.
yeah,
There's only one relationship I did truly bring around my son.
mm-hmm,
He was much younger. And this is someone who still checks up on him. This is someone who will still tell me, let me know when you're around or whatever. Or if he is around, he'll call me, hey, can I come by and see him? Like, how are you guys doing?
mm-hmm,
You know, we didn't leave necessarily overall on bad terms,
yeah,
but there has always been a genuine care for my kid. And that's one thing I will say. The moments my son saw on that, I can say, he saw something good.
yeah,
I can't say he saw something bad, because that has always been my fear, that
right,
after leaving a certain type of a relationship, that I may bring that to my son because I had
mm,
left it, right?
yes,
And I was more focused on, I don't want him to ever think it's okay to do that to someone.
yeah,
I don't ever want him to see that and think, "Oh, that's normal. Like, I'm supposed to treat a woman." I don't want that.
right,
I don't I don't ever want to be on that end of it, right?
mm-hmm,
I don't want him to ever get hurt or to
right,
ever be on the receiving, but realistically, I need him to understand what respect looks like to any
mm,
female, to any
yep,
woman,
yep,
right? And that's a constant conversation as a young man that he is, that I have to constantly have with him. And not that he ever does anything,
right,
but the conversation needs to continue. The reminders
absolutely,
need to continue. It is my job and my duty as a parent.
mm,
You have a space to tell me everything, but I also have the responsibility to address everything always, even if you're not doing it. That's
absolutely.
my responsibility as a parent.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you for highlighting that. I
Yeah. I
hope
just want to
that
say one more thing.
yeah,
My daughter came to me the other day. It was a couple weeks ago, and I forgot what conversation we were having, but it was like a really like deep conversation. And at the end of it, she was just like, Ma, I just feel so safe and I feel like I can trust you and tell you everything. Like, this makes me so happy. And she had like the biggest smile on her face. And I was just like, damn, like,
you
I'm
did it.
really fucking doing that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I wished I had that growing up. But just
Mhm.
to see that we were able to have that conversation and it really like stuck with her. And she told me, like, yo, I feel safe and I trust you. What more can a mother ask for? You know?
You're doing it. You're doing
Mm,
it. You're doing it exactly what your purpose is.
yeah.
You're doing it. And I think that's something that's important to highlight, because I think there's still a lot of conversations that are not being had with our
Yeah.
kids.
Yep.
And by our kids, I don't mean mine and Leanne's kids. I mean just our youth, guys.
Everybody.
I
Yep.
think there is a lot of conversation that we still tiptoe around. So many different topics. One that I'm very passionate about is what is consent.
Mm,
Um,
yes.
we
The
need to
sex
have
talk,
those
girl.
conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, and the reason why is because, and I'm gonna keep it all the way raw. There is such a blur gray area with between the no and the yes, and how it turns into abuse. Okay.
Yes.
And we need to have those conversations. I don't care if parents, oh well, they're not supposed to be thinking about that now. True, they're probably not supposed to be thinking about that now. You're absolutely right. But the fact
But
is, they're
let's
talking
be
about it in
realistic.
school.
Exactly. Exactly. And especially with social media and this fucking thing that they're controlled by. Come on.
Come on now. We
Yes.
need to have these conversations. If we tackle conversations, specific conversations, you have no idea how many other topics you are tackling and addressing without you even intentionally doing so. You bring
Exactly.
so much to light in having these conversations.
Yep.
And so that was also part of the reason why I wanted to highlight that question and highlight that conversation, because I think it's really important when it comes to watching us thrive, to be honest
Yes.
with you. There's no other way to say that, but that's really
Yes.
what it is. There's so much to this. And that's why Leanne's here. Leanne has a purpose and her why. And if you guys go listen to her episodes, guys, you could just see how much you've been able to cover,
Mhm.
right? What came from this has
Mhm.
just like encompassed so much. You
And we
have
just getting started, honey.
that's right. And that's what's so beautiful about
Yeah.
your platform, and in a sense, your journey and your
Yeah.
story. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We're gonna go into the double or nothing, and this is where I want to talk about, that you did it. Your community. You gave us a little insight as to how far you've reached,
Mhm.
but what does it look like with your community, and how it ties into what was your initial purpose and to what watching us thrive has become for you?
Mm. Yeah, I think there's such a power in community, in us sharing our stories and attracting the people who are meant to be in your life. I attended a virtual event that my sister hosted January of last year called Manifiesta, and it was just like a 5 or 6 day online event where different women came on to, like, you just manifest the life that you want to live and do the work to make that shit happen. And in that event, I met so many amazing fucking women who are aligned in the same energy that I'm in, and some of them have been able to come on the show and share their own experiences. But
Mm,
it is just so fucking powerful. One, sharing your story, and two, attracting the people who are meant for you. Like,
mm,
I know that I'm not for everybody, you're not for everybody, and that's perfectly fine because I don't want to be for everybody. That's where
mm-hmm,
the authenticity doesn't happen, right? I
mm.
want to align and attract myself with the type of people who understand. Sorry, that's my dog in the background.
It's okay. It's all
Who
right.
understand my vision, my purpose, my why, my reasoning, who support me, who listen every week, who share my platform with other people. Like, those are the type of people that I want in my corner. And that's what you need to do for whatever it is that is your vision, your purpose, your why. Find the people who are on the same wavelength as you, and also get rid of the people who are not syncing up with your vision of wanting more. A lot of people are only in your life for a reason and a season, as cliche as it sounds, and some people can't come on to the next chapter of your life story with you. Yes, it's hard to end those relationships, even if they were family or like a best friend for 10 plus years, but they just only want to talk about, the toxic relationship and going out and partying, and you're over here trying to, start a business and level up and do the shit. Like, if you guys are not aligned, it is okay to cut ties. It is okay to chuck up the deuces and say, like, you were a part of this chapter of my life, but it's time for me to exit stage left. And I've had to do that with some people, and it's uncomfortable. But if you're really serious about taking your own personal development journey seriously, some of those people can't come with you to the next chapter of your life. And we need to normalize that too. Like, you don't need to stay connected to everyone because of this feeling of, oh, I've known them for so long, so I need to stay loyal to this
Mm.
definition of time. And that's something that I did, not with my last relationship that was physically abusive, but the relationship before that. I was with a toxic person, and I was toxic as well. I'm taking accountability too, but I stayed loyal to this man on and off for 8.5 years because of having that thought of, oh, we've been together for so long,
For
we've
so
been through so
long.
much. He was like a stepdad to my daughter, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just so fucking toxic and draining. And finally, I got to the point that I ended the relationship for good, but I stayed loyal for so long because of this definition of time. And that
Mm-hmm.
is a narrative that needs to change. If someone is not
Mm-hmm.
meant to be in your life and you're trying to reach that next level, please cut off the relationship. Yes, it's hard, it's uncomfortable, you're going to be sad, you might cry, but the bigger picture is so worth it. I have changed so much in this almost year of the person that I was to who I am now. And it's because I changed my circle. I changed the people who I
Mm-hmm.
allowed into my energy. I got rid of the soul suckers that were in my life. And
Mm.
that's just something that you
Mm.
got to do. It's uncomfortable, but hey, you got to do it.
Mm.
I know you can
I just
relate.
want. Oh, she knows. She's seeing my face.
Yes.
She's like, Daisy's feeling every single part of what
Yes.
I'm saying.
Yes.
You saw my face. It's that little
Uh-huh.
line right there. It's inherited. My dad has it, and all of us do. And so once you
Yes.
see it coming in, I'm like,
Yes.
And the more it gets, it's like,
Yes.
oh, she really feeling it.
Yes.
For the record, I just realized I ran into the next segment and I did. So this is the double or nothing, and Leanne just hit us with double on that one. Let me just say that, for anybody who's tuning in and is, maybe first time listener to the show and just see what this is like, coming to hear what Leanne has to say. Welcome. But yeah, y'all getting to know all my little lines right here because she hit it
Yes.
off. I want to say this. You know what's funny? Um, I have felt every single one of those feels.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna add double or nothing. I'm gonna add even the workplace environment. I've had the workplace
Mhm.
environment, the friend, the family member, the
Yep.
lover, right? And I can hold myself accountable to an extent of certain things that I fell short in, right?
Yeah.
Or that I didn't fully deliver probably the way that I should have. Not to
Mhm.
say that I deserved anything that happened. No, it's just me holding myself accountable and giving myself my own responsibility
Yep.
for certain things. Now, with that said, I can wholeheartedly say that the way this world works, the world will always show you the aftermath
Mm.
one way or another. For some
Come on.
people, it's called karma, right? For some
Yep.
people, it is. I like to call it, the aftermath. And the reason why I call it that is because I am actually one that is very afraid of karma because I've seen it.
Mm.
I've seen I've seen it. And
Mhm.
as much as I used to call on it, it was not a good feeling, y'all, when I saw it. And I say
Yeah.
it time and time again here. It is not. It's just when you see karma come back around
Mm.
and sometimes on a 3 or 10 times harder, it is not a good feeling to see it. So I'm gonna call it the aftermath. And I've
Mhm.
witnessed the aftermath in some situations involving the other party, involving the other side. And there's one particular person that I bear witness to what that person uh, had created certain storylines, certain narratives, not just on me, but on someone else who we were once considered dear friends to this person. And to see almost 2 years later, to see them creating continued storylines, to see them creating narratives, and I saw the aftermath. It's social media works in funny ways,
Hmm.
and it landed on a feed. It did.
Mm.
And it was insane to me to see that. The things that I saw, it was just kind of like, wow. I want to bring that up because I feel that when we highlight, knowing when to remove certain people, we have to hold ourselves accountable and responsible in realizing where time does nothing if the other party is not understanding their faults or their
Mhm.
wrongs or their flaws.
Mhm.
I don't want to say that you have to change those things. I just want to say that sometimes you can evolve and grow from those things, but you have to be able to recognize them.
Yeah.
And when people do not take any type of responsibility or accountability to things, when people are not able to admit to themselves where they may have been wrong, it is a problem. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. It is how toxicity brews.
Mm.
And I don't mean by brews as in the black and blue. I mean by brewing coffee, y'all. It
Mhm.
continues to brew every single day.
Yep.
And this is why it's important to be able to identify this for yourself, for your peace, for your space, to know when it's time to remove certain people
Mm,
or to remove yourself so that
mhm,
you can be able to live a much healthier life. I I am glad I came across that aftermath because it just confirmed to me that that person will never ever
mm,
take responsibility for anything. And it's
mhm.
sad. It's sad because
Yeah,
it's a lot of years of friendship, a lot of years of friendship.
yeah.
Y'all, Lianne said 10. We talking, it was 20,
Mm,
20 years of friendship.
that's hard.
Um, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to bear witness to that. It's hard to see it. You know, you hope people could learn something from things.
Yeah,
There are just people out there who will just never learn.
yeah.
And we have to be able to recognize that and identify that and know if that is going to be at all compatible or
Mm,
aligned with anything that you're working on, with whatever your
mhm.
purpose is or what your goals are, because those are the things that will hold you back.
You
Okay.
know, I want to share real quick a story of like the night that everything happened with my ex.
Mm. Yes.
I have the full story on my podcast for anyone who wants to listen to it because if I
Yes.
were to say it now, it would be like another 2 hours. But it's episode 10 for anyone who wants to listen. But
Beautiful. We'll link
long,
it. We'll link it in
yes,
the show notes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Long story short, the morning of when everything happened, I was going through some shit and me using social media as an outlet, I wrote a post on my Facebook and it said something along the lines of like, God, please, I'm going through so much and I just need this dark energy removed out of my life. Like I've reached my breaking point, like I'm fucking tired. Something's got to give. And I posted it. Then lo and behold, the night that everything happened, when I escaped that dark energy, like I literally believe that God heard my message and was like,
Mm.
okay, you're not going to leave yourself. Like, you don't have the mental capacity to walk away from this relationship, but I see that you've reached this breaking point. So now we're going to shake some shit up and make it happen in a way that you're actually going to sit down and listen to me because you've been ignoring the red flags for so fucking long. And it had to happen in the way that it happened, but I am so fucking grateful for it. And I can say that now, being that it has been some time since it's happened. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
2 years in March. But I just share that to say that, like, sometimes your world needs to be shaken up in
Oh.
order for you to really understand the
Mm.
message. And there
Oh, that give
is
me chills.
yes, and there's always like my one of my life coach that I work with, shout out to Erica Kramer, she's fucking amazing.
Mm.
She said this quote that really stuck out to me, that there is a message in the mess. And
Mm.
you might not see it when you're in that season of chaos that we all experience, but there is always a greater purpose behind everything that we go through. And I know the night that I escaped, when my life was almost taken from me, it happened for a reason because I'm sitting here right now having this conversation with you. And I know
Mm-hmm.
I survived that night for a reason. And God was with me that night, and my angels were with me that night in order for me to sit here and share the story with you. So, sometimes you're not going to be able to do it yourself. And I believe in God, there's a higher power for whoever's listening, whatever you believe in. But sometimes be careful what you ask for because that shit will happen. Trust and believe it will happen.
We're shaking tables.
Yes. Oh, my table
Absolutely.
was shook,
Shook.
flipped, thrown across the room. He was like, bitch, you gonna listen to me this time.
Uh-huh.
But I
Yeah.
asked
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I asked
Yeah.
for it and I needed it because I knew I couldn't do it myself. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. That's so
yeah,
dope. Thank you for sharing that. We will
absolutely.
definitely link it in the show notes. If there's one thing about me, everybody knows I love to link things in the show notes. So we'll be linking that specific episode because I
Yeah,
do think it's important for everyone to understand to what extent this has come for Lianne and for her community who she
yeah.
has today that is able to find some form of peace and comfort in being
Mhm,
able to listen to stories and say, that was me.
mhm.
Or, oh shit, I'm not alone. Right.
Yes.
So I want to be able to highlight that too. So we'll be linking it in the show notes.
Thank you.
One last question in the double or nothing. for you. And
Hmm.
this, I love this. When we started recording, I said, "Oh, did you read the little short agenda?" Listen, the whole damn thing just went in reverse, and that's okay because I love natural conversation. And
Yes.
everybody who knows me knows I always issue an agenda, but it's more so
Yeah.
out of respect. I feel like I should respect my guests and just knowing like the little points I want to highlight.
Hmm.
But listen, and anything for raw talk has to be natural and
Yes.
very organic. So here
That's
we
why I
are.
didn't look at it. I was like, no, I didn't.
She's like, nah,
Don't
she's like,
ask me anything.
one last thing when it comes to community,
Hmm.
how is it that you've been able to work through your healing to not allow other people's stories to trigger you? Because one of
Mm,
your goals is to be able to bring these stories to the platform for discussion, for conversation, keeping it all the way raw. And I
mhm,
think it's beautiful, right? But how do we try and keep it from not triggering us? Because I'm
mhm,
going to be honest, in recent weeks, I've had certain instances where I've been very triggered
mm. Me too.
to past experiences,
Yeah,
and these are like personal situations,
yeah.
and that's been hard. It's been very, very hard. But here you are with a whole platform where that is part of the purpose is to bring these triggers to the platform, to bring this
Mhm.
raw conversation. How do you work through that so it doesn't trigger you?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. I got triggered the other day. So,
Mm.
for anyone who doesn't know, Jada Pinkett Smith has this series on Facebook called Red Table Talk.
Oh yeah.
And yes, and
Mm.
the most recent episode featured Ashanti, the R&B singer, and her sister, who was a survivor of domestic violence. And watching that triggered the fuck out of me because the pictures and the
Mhm.
videos that they shared was so graphic, and it brought me right back to my relationship. And I was sitting there like hyperventilating, I was crying, I was like, holy shit, I haven't felt this way in a minute,
Mm.
because I have been able to work through those feelings of post traumatic stress disorder, which I was clinically diagnosed with by my psychologist that I worked
Mhm.
with. So, in that moment, I allowed myself to feel the feelings that were coming up, and I
Mm.
sat in it, which is something that was so new for me because, like I said earlier, like for the first 33 years of my life, I swept shit under the rug. Everything's great, nothing's going on until I'm by myself, and then I can let shit out, but no one can know.
Mhm.
So, one of the tools that my psychologist, shout out to Dr. Lambert, he's fucking phenomenal. He told me that he was like, you have post traumatic stress disorder, which is something very common for survivors of trauma, whatever kind of trauma it is. And triggers are going to come up. When those moments come up, allow yourself to feel the way that you're feeling. Close your eyes, give it a picture, see the face, whatever it is that you need to do. Be in that moment. But then when you're done, you're not going to stay there. You're going to imagine like a cloud passing by in the sky. You're releasing
Mm.
a balloon into the air, and that's the memory moving away. Right. And I was
Mm.
like, yo, that is
Beautiful.
so powerful for me. Like,
Yes.
instead of running away from the triggers, instead of not acknowledging them, instead of being afraid of the triggers, I allow myself to be like, this is how I feel in this moment, and I'm not ashamed by feeling this way. Even though I've done
Mm.
so much growth and so much healing, I'm a fucking human being. What I went through was very fucking traumatic. And it's okay. And I am safe. And I am no
Mm.
longer in that situation. But for right now, this is how I'm feeling. I'm acknowledging it, but I'm not staying there. And that's
Mm.
something that is so powerful for me and my growth, because I was, and I can still be, that type of person that when I go down a rabbit hole and those dark thoughts start coming up, I can
Mhm.
fucking go dark and I can
Mhm.
stay there, and that shit can manifest in my life. But knowing
Right.
the tools that I have now of speaking up when I'm feeling some type of way, of acknowledging the feelings that are coming up in that moment, of not staying there for too long, like allowing myself to have a sad girl day. Like I said, some days are sad girl days, some days are bad bitch days, and that's okay. Like having the capacity to have both and not feel bad and not beat myself up for being like, damn,
Mhm.
it's been this long and I'm still feeling triggered by this. I shouldn't be. Who fucking says you shouldn't be? Your journey
Mm-hmm.
is your journey. Your story is your
Hey,
story. And if you want to cry, and if you want to lay in bed all day, and if you want to feel sorry for yourself, if you want to feel like a victim, do that shit.
do that.
Do
Mm-hmm.
that shit and not worry about what other people are going to think. But my biggest piece of advice is once you're in that moment, you cannot stay in that moment, because if you do,
Mm-hmm.
that is when depression starts. That is when
Mm-hmm.
anxiety comes up. That's when all, like, it can just manifest into something so dark and negative that I've experienced myself. Being able to acknowledge it but then move past it and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that those moments will continue to come up, but as long as you have the tools and as long as you're able to be like, hey, I don't feel good today, this is what's going on, I need some alone time, or I need some space, or I really
Mm-hmm.
just don't want to talk about it right now, but we can revisit it in a couple of hours or a couple of days. That's the way that I've been able to move through my own shit that has come up. I hope that's helpful for
Amazing.
anyone who's
It
listening.
is. And I'm glad you shared that because that looks very different. That was very beautiful that you've been able to share um the expert,
Hmm. Oh, I knew
method.
I couldn't do it alone. I knew
Yeah,
I couldn't do it
yeah.
alone, and that's the thing. Like for me, I'm such a headstrong person, and I feel like I don't want to ask people for help because I felt
Mhm.
like such a burden to so many people for so long in my life.
Yeah.
So for me to be able to switch that narrative, like speaking up and asking for help and being like, "Yo, I
Mhm.
can't do this alone," that has helped
Right.
me so much. So fucking
Right.
much.
Yeah. One of the things, again, Leanne, because I knew we were gonna have this type of conversation, I felt comfortable enough to share,
Mhm.
with two particular instances in recent months, recent weeks, that I felt very, very triggered. One of the things, and I've shared this on this platform, but I'll, put it as a reminder. One of the methods I use, and this has been worked through with my therapist, but also, and I haven't seen him in a long time, but shout out to my personal trainer, Rick. I do a lot of counting down, right, when
Mhm.
I'm getting to the finish line,
Mhm.
when I'm getting to that feeling of relief, I completed this set, right.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to incorporate that into a lot of my previous, haven't had one in a very long time, knock on wood, um haven't had one in a while, panic attack or an anxiety attack, but
Mhm.
when I feel very triggered, I do the countdown.
Yep.
I do the countdown in my head. I have a tendency, and it was funny, my sister said it the other day. I noticed, like, when you feel a way, you sit back. She goes, and you start the mm-hmm. She noticed
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, Yeah, I did do that." She's like, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Because I'm counting." And so I'm
Mm.
counting. I don't want to come off rude and act like I'm not paying attention, because I am paying attention to what's going
Right.
on.
Right.
But in my head, I tend to, my posture changes a little bit, and I kind of like sit back,
Mm.
shoulders upright and all the way back. And it's in a way me making sure I keep control of myself in
Mhm.
that moment, that it doesn't escalate into a panic or an anxiety attack,
Mm.
and that I start my counting down. So in that moment when I'm feeling triggered, I'm counting down, I'm breathing. So when I'm going there's a breath in between that. Yeah, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not me shutting down. It's just me creating that focus that I need in that moment,
Yeah.
so that I don't lose my shit.
Right.
And so that I don't lose myself. Those
Mhm.
are two different things, y'all. Losing your shit and losing yourself are two
Mm.
completely different things.
Yes.
And that's what
Don't
I
let
do
that
for
go over
me.
your head, y'all. Don't let that go over your head.
No, y'all better recognize, y'all better recognize that
Yeah.
the amount of self-awareness it takes
Mm.
to know the difference between the two
Yep.
it's incredible. And I had
Mm.
no idea until I learned about it. I think I learned about it about a year ago.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, those are two different things, really?" She's
Mhm.
like, "Oh yeah." She was like, "No, it is. I'm gonna
Yeah.
need you to sit down and let's talk about this." I said,
Let's
"Okay."
marinate on that real quick.
And I had no idea. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, copy. I got it now." So, I appreciate you sharing so much, such a method, and I hope that is something very powerful, equally powerful and beautiful and useful as a
Yeah.
resource to several people here who are listening and tuning in, or if you know anyone who could use that as a method, please share. Even just you taking me through that with the balloon,
Hmm.
there's such a release, and I think that's essentially what it is that when we're
Yes.
feeling triggered, we are able to come to terms with what that trigger is and what our story is, but be able to release it. Again, that's not called letting it go, that's
Yes.
called releasing it. There are two different things, because
Yes.
newsflash, we could never let it go, we can
Exactly.
just release it. That's what
Exactly.
we can do. Y'all, we teaching y'all so much
Yes.
here. All
And that's
right.
the
So,
thing. Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. That's the thing with
yeah.
trauma survivors, right? Like your nervous system, and there's so much science behind this, is dysregulated. And when you go through something traumatic, like
Mhm.
you're stuck in that fight, flight, fawn, or freeze mode, right? So when those
Yeah.
triggers come up, it's bringing you back to like your body is like, oh my God, I'm in the same situation. What am I going to do? And you need to use those tools in order to remind your body and tell your body like,
Mhm.
I am safe, I am
Yes.
okay, I am not in this situation anymore. It is a work in progress, it is a practice. It's not just something that like, you do it once and, oh, I'm saved, I'm healed. No, in order
Mm-mm.
to continue healing from whatever it is that you've gone through, and when those triggers come up, like you just have to continue practicing and trying out different things. And even breathing is something that's very powerful for me too, like you said.
Mhm.
I think my psychologist told me it was like the 5-7-5 rule or something like that, or 5-7-7, I don't know.
Mhm. I've heard of that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Meditating, journaling, getting those thoughts out, whether you're a writer, whether you want to use your voice notes to record and just dump everything out. Like there's so many tools out there to help you, but it's a practice at the end of the day. You need to
Mhm.
continue working through it every single day, and just be hold grace and space for yourself when those moments come up, and know that they're not going to last forever.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, we're going to go into the overdose, and this is our last segment. And in the overdose, we tend to highlight something we are overjoyed with or completely over it. And this could be anything. It doesn't have to be relevant to the topics we've had here, but it's kind of like the release of the episode. Ooh,
Hmm.
it's kind of like the release. So anything at all. And it could be one or the other or both. So, Lianne, do you want
Okay.
to share something you are either or?
I'm gonna keep it on topic because I just think this
Okay.
episode is amazing.
Yes.
What I'm overjoyed with is meeting you first and foremost,
Oh,
and
thank you.
the Instagram algorithm bringing us together. I think that's how we connected on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just having these type of conversation, it literally like tickles my vagina.
Yeah. Hey,
Like
that's
like
on Cardi B brand.
yes, yes, like literally this lights me up so much. Like just having these raw, honest, vulnerable ass conversations that I know are going to help people so much.
Mhm.
Like just meeting like-minded people like you who understand the vision, who understand the goal, who are on the same frequency as I am. Like if I could do this every single day, well, I kind of am, but if I could do this literally like 24 hours a day, I would, because it's just so needed. It's so
Yes.
necessary. It's like there's so many broken people out here who are lacking and who need these type of spaces to feel safe and vulnerable and honest, and for us to be doing it, like I'm over the fucking moon. I could talk to
Mhm.
you for like the rest of the day because it's just
Anytime.
yes, it's just, and I need you on my show. Let's
Oh,
let's make
yes,
that happen.
anytime. Yes.
But yeah, I'm just so grateful to have had this opportunity to just share a little bit about who I am with you and your audience. And I just think what we are doing is so fucking powerful. And I know that we are creating a path for other people to be like, yo, they've been through some shit, but look at them now. Like if
Mhm.
they
Yes.
fucking did it, I know I can do it. And that is the purpose behind this brand, this podcast, this everything. Like showing you that there is so much more than what you've gone through. And you don't need to allow yourself to be a victim of your circumstance. Yes, you've gone through some shit. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it fucking broke you down. But you don't need to stay there. Like, look at you and look at me.
Absolutely.
Like, we out here thriving, okay?
We are. Yes. I'm with you. That is
Yes.
so beautiful. I
Yes.
love that overjoyment. Okay, I'm not
Yes.
going to make mine sad, but that was beautiful. I love it. Oh my God. No, well, because you know what it is? I think it takes a lot for people to be able to see that,
Mhm.
there and neither one of us are preaching any type of perfection.
No.
Nothing is perfect, y'all. I was just
Please.
arguing with my son's father like a month ago. I was. I mean, it
I
is what
was
it
just
is.
crying last week, okay?
Yeah, like
Like,
I
don't
was
get it
like, you don't
twisted.
get it. I was like, you don't get it. This is
Yes.
new to me. He's a teenage boy. I don't know what the hell to do. I was never a
Yes.
teenage boy. Like
Yes.
I only like them. I don't know what
Right.
it is to be them. Like that's it. I was
Right.
like flipping.
Right.
But there's always something, and
Yeah.
you think that part of that is really trying to look at not so much the positive, but really the good in
Mhm.
certain things, even in the ugliest
Mm.
situations. You know, we focus so much on when will it get better, when will it get better, and I'm gonna say we because I know
Me
I
too.
have.
Oh, me too.
It's until I learned how to look at the good in something. There. What am I learning here?
Mm.
Let me start paying attention and let me take the notes. Let me take
Mm.
the notes
Come on.
because something from here that looks so nasty, so ugly, there's something good here that I know I'm going to be able to use later.
There's a message in the mess.
Always. And I think that's where our platforms are created. I think that's where our voices are amplified. I think that's where true conversation can really happen
Yep.
if we start looking at the good in certain things. Not to say you don't look at what the bad is. Remember, those are the facts. I'm just
Exactly.
saying, let's try and look at the good in certain things that
Mm.
can really help you to continue on, right?
Amen.
Um, Thank you for that message. That was so beautiful. And I would be
Absolutely.
absolutely humbled and honored to come on your show.
Oh yeah, girl. I'm gonna send that email real
Yes.
soon.
Yes, anytime. I want to share something that I am overjoyed with.
Yes.
And one of the things I am extremely overjoyed with is being in a space where, with nothing being perfect, with still certain hurdles and still certain up and downs and certain roller coasters and even things that are beyond my control or even control of my loved ones, I am truly, truly in a space of peacefulness.
Mm.
And
Come on.
I want to say that because I want to be clear on this. We go through so much shit as just as human beings, to everything that Lianne just said. But there's so much to feel successful in when you can
Mm.
still feel at peace
Mm.
with everything that you're going through, learning from it, growing from it, living through it, thriving from it, all of it. All of it. I'm still learning every day.
Yes.
Every day there is something, every day there's still something that's harboring. um there's some good stuff going on, there's some not so good stuff going on, but I am at peace. And
Yep.
I'm at peace for one reason, and I realize the peacefulness comes from you knowing what your true intentions are to this world, to your
Mm.
universe, to your love, to your heart, right, to your spirit, and being so intentional and so truthful and so genuine, but most importantly non-malicious. I want to highlight that word. There's a reason why. That everything that you do is really, truly pure of heart and kind of heart. You live a very peaceful life.
Mm.
You really do.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm shaking a little bit of a table here, probably for some people,
Yep.
because it's real easy sometimes for us to be so angry with other people. It's real easy for us to be so angry at certain situations, and sometimes we say some really fucked up things. Don't get it twisted. I be saying some really fucked up things. I
Yep.
be envisioning myself like walking into places and fucking shit up. Like, I'm not even gonna lie,
Yes.
but I gotta resort, pull back a little bit, and I pray on it, and I talk to the highest of highest powers out there, to my universe. I speak to myself, right?
Mm,
I do the counting backwards and counting down and the cool down. Everything that I do when I work out, I do it for me, right? And I come still to a place where I am at peace. I'm at
mm,
peace with what I've said. I'm at peace with what I've done, because I know that what I said, I meant. What I did, I meant. And it was still pure of heart. There was
mm.
nothing, not a single bone in my body, not a single bloodstream in my insides that could ever say, damn, that was fucked up and that was malicious and that was with ill intent. And
Yep.
I wanted to say that because we're in the holiday season.
Mhm.
There's so much going on, right, with loved ones, with friendships and whatnot. And I think the way each one of us moves and lives our lives is a true reflection of who we are as people.
Yep.
And we need to keep that in mind as we choose during the holiday season who we love closing out this year and who we're going to continue to love welcoming in a new year.
Mhm.
And it's an overjoyment. It's an overjoyment to know where my piece is,
Mm.
and for me to encourage it and to tell people to know where your piece is too, and to
Yes.
know how to move so beautifully in life. Not perfect, just beautifully in life and in peace.
Mm.
And that's my overjoyment.
I'm so
Okay.
happy for you. I can relate
Thank
so much.
you.
Like
Yes.
I've been in this season of just really focusing on myself
Mm.
for the first time in my life. And it is literally like, yo, Daisy, you don't understand the peace that I'm at right now. This sense of calm that I have not had in so long because I've just been around so much toxicity and chaos. I will
Hmm.
never fucking give away this feeling to anyone or anything ever the fuck again. I know what it
Hmm.
feels like now. Bitch, you can't tell me nothing.
Ever,
Nothing.
ever, ever. I know
And
that's
if
right.
anyone
No.
tries to take it away, bye.
Mm-mm.
Not, we're not
No.
entertaining the bullshit.
No, I'm
Yeah.
locking my door. I lock my
Yes.
door. I mean, I
Okay.
have to lock my door, but I'm locking my door to that. Is what I'm
Yes.
saying. No,
Yes.
no, just know exactly what that is for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're really gonna be able to feel in peace. And that's not to say you're not gonna feel hurt. You're not gonna feel pain.
Right.
When life happens, and you're gonna feel all of that, and you're gonna ask your millions of questions. You're probably gonna say, God, why
Mm-hmm.
us, why me? But that shouldn't shake away your peace
Yep.
or to who you are. Because
Yep.
remember, there's always going to be things we can't control. There's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be things that are going to turn, not only shake the table, but turn our lives upside down.
Yep.
But is your life still in peace?
Mm. Come on.
That's it. That's the part.
That is the
Okay.
sermon for today, ladies and
That's
gentlemen.
the sermon. It's Sunday. We recording on a Sunday. Y'all know I
Okay.
be hitting y'all with my Sunday sermons when I record on Sundays. Hello. All right. Well, Leanne, it was amazing to have you on this
Yes.
episode, on this
Thank you.
show. I'm
Thank
so
you.
grateful for you coming on this platform, sharing your story, sharing your gems and your offerings. Can you please tell my listeners where they can follow you and find you, stream your episodes, and get to know who Leanne is?
Yes, thank you so much once again for having me. This has been amazing. This literally like just made my Sunday, so thank you.
Yay.
You can follow me. I'm primarily on Instagram. That is my home.
Mhm.
That's where I love to show up. Watch Us Thrive Podcast is the username. I'm also on TikTok under the same handle, Watch Us Thrive Podcast. I'm
Mhm.
on YouTube as well, but it hasn't, like, I just started it. There's nothing on there, but that's my plan for 2023. Also on
Okay.
Twitter, WUT podcast underscore, and my beautiful website that went live like a month ago. I'm
It is
so
beautiful.
happy with it. Thank you. WUTpodcast.com. That's where I have all of my episodes. I have blog posts on there that I need to work a little bit more on, but that's the goal for 2023.
Yes.
And you can listen to my podcast. It's called Watch Us Thrive. It's literally everywhere: Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, wherever you love listening to podcasts. I drop brand new episodes every Tuesday, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And sometimes I throw in an occasional bonus episode in between, usually on
Okay.
Fridays. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Oh, I loved having you here. And I
Thank
always
you.
say this with all my guests, but I really mean it. This is not the last time you're going to hear from Lianne
Oh
on this
no.
show. You
Mm-mm.
no, I'm
We
just,
got a lot more we could
I
talk about, honey.
yeah, and it's been a while since I've said that about people, but I really mean that. My
Oh,
guests really always come back. There's like a few people I need to like hit up again. Like, I see you. We
yes.
need to come back. So
Yes.
we will
Whenever you're ready, baby.
definitely, absolutely. And as always, guys, this has been another week and another episode on Double Dose of Raw Talk podcast. I am your host, Miss D, and you guys will tune in next week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And we are live on your favorite podcast streaming platform. Make sure to tell a friend to subscribe, rate, and review. Talk to you later. Bye.